I want the story where the car was on fire. I want the story where, oh, there was a major flood and it was there for a week. So when people usually buy any car, whether it's a sports car or even an exotic car, they want something that looks nice. They want something that looks relatively new. They want the paint job that's nice. They want a Concours-ready example. If you're looking for a Ferrari or Lamborghini, it gets even more stringent in terms of that standard. Me, I'm a little bit different. I tend to like the cars that have a story. And not your usual story of, well, you know, that scratch is there because it might have hit some small animal at some point. No, I want the story where the car was on fire. I want the story where, oh, there was a major flood and it was there for a week. I want the story where there have to be multiple paragraphs and possibly a police report. So I want to be the guy that buys a car with a story before the story ends. Now, I have a little bit of a history with some exotic cars, and it all started not too long ago. I actually didn't get into this game more than a year back. So in about a year, I've amassed quite a collection, if you will. I spent about $275,000 for about $1.5 million worth of cars. Now, this is when they were brand new, so mine required a little bit of work. But here are the cars that I had. A 2007 Aston Martin V8 Vantage, a 2008 Lamborghini Gallardo Spider with twin turbos and a manual gated transmission, a 2003 Lamborghini Murcielago, a 2004 Bentley Continental GT, there was a Tyler Hoover's car, a 2007 Mercedes-Benz S600, also Tyler Hoover's car, a 1995 Ferrari F355, you guessed it, Tyler Hoover's car again, and a 1995 Dodge Viper RT10. What is not Tyler Hoover's car, but it was the cheapest one in the country. I had a 2000 Mercedes S500 and a 2003 Mercedes-Benz SL55 AMG. Now, in all of these cases, I'm spending about 5 to 25% of what these cars were brand new. But I don't really care about that cost. What I care about is the cost of what they are on the used car market, and that is about half. I'm paying about half of what their used car values are. If you told somebody that didn't know anything about cars, oh, this guy has 2 Lamborghinis and a Bentley and a Ferrari and all these other things, but every single one has been the cheapest one by far in the country, if not the world, for good reason. So when I look for a car, there's a few things that are on my list that probably wouldn't be on the list of anybody else. Number one is fire damage. Now, fire damage scares a lot of people, as it should. Fire does a lot of damage to a lot of components in the car. However, not all fire damage is equal. Now, I have 2 cars currently that have been fire damaged in the past. Number one is my Lamborghini Gallardo Spider. When I first got that car, it had a small fire damage issue on one of the sides. Now, that was a fuel fire. It wasn't internally, but it was from the old owner overfilling it, and it just kind of went up at a gas station, and the car was still drivable afterwards. However, there is bad fire damage, and that would be the example of the number 2 car that I bought, the Ferrari F355, previously owned by Tyler Hoover, and that was an internal engine fire from a fuel line that burst behind the engine, and that was due to a recall not done by Tyler, and actually a recall that should have been done by Ferrari a long time ago. Now, that had a major fire when I was out in California, and it engulfed the entire interior, the engine compartment, the entire back half of the car. I think there's probably 25% left in that car. Now, I bought that car just as a challenge to myself to see if I can rebuild it. And honestly, I think I can, but it's just so much more work than what my Lamborghini was that it's just like I need a completely new car to transplant into this one to make it work. So when I look for a fire damage car, I make sure that the components around aren't necessarily in the worst shape. Now, you could have some damage to electrical components and all that stuff. You can do some wiring work. You can replace a harness. That's not a big deal. But when metal is structurally compromised, that's really what you want to avoid. So on any Ferrari or Lamborghini or any exotic car, you realize that they are just kind of welded box section. And they're kind of like go-karts in a way. It's just like a big skateboard. The back half is just engine, and it's just suspended by this thin tube steel, or aluminum in some cases. And what happens when there's a fire is that steel or aluminum gets really weak. And it's even worse with carbon fiber with the new McLarens. It literally just falls apart. It's like paper. So you have to make sure that whenever the fire happens, it's not in a place where the structural rigidity is compromised. Now, in the case of my F355, it was in a very questionable area because it was right between where the passenger compartment is and the engine compartment is. So there is a structural area there. That's the firewall. And I did check it out, and it seems like it's okay. There wasn't too much warpage, but I will be replacing all that metal. Now, the Gallardo that I just finished, I did some tallying on that. And you should never do that with any project because you're going to get a number that you don't like. But I actually got a number that I was okay with. So let's do a little rundown of that. So it's a 2008 Lamborghini Gallardo Spider. It is balloon white, I believe. It's some sort of white. It's a nice white. It has a built engine, has an aftermarket engine components making a lot of power, has a twin turbo setup making a lot of power, has a gated manual transmission, which is just going up in price. It has a spider top that works somewhat, and it has a new paint job and everything's refurbished. And I ended up spending, to do the entire rebuild, I did have to do an extensive rebuild over about 9 months. I ended up spending around $91,000, including the cost of the car. Now, when you compare that to any Gallardo out there, this is about mid-range for a 2008 E-Gear, but for a manual transmission, it's not really all that bad. It does have a salvage title, which lowers it some, but then when you add the twin turbo system and the fact that it has a built engine and the fact that it runs really, really well and it has almost double the horsepower, it really is something that I can't buy anywhere else, and I don't think I would ever sell it. So if you took a car like this in perfect condition with the same modifications and all that stuff, it would probably cost better part of $200,000. So I think I got a pretty good deal with my system here. Now, I'm going to replicate that with all my other cars, all the projects that I have right now, which are kind of, mounting up, and I'm not scared at all. But these projects are a passion for me, and they'd have to be a passion for anybody else trying to do this. You have to learn where you can get parts. You have to learn where you can skimp on things. You have to learn where you don't have to go to the dealer for everything. There are lots of parts dismantlers. You don't have to get new parts on everything. And you don't have to worry about the next owner because on these cars, they're already so far gone that the next owner is just going to look at that Carfax history and he's just going to write this car off. So unless you're willing to keep the car or not really care about the resale value afterwards, then it might not make sense. Now, with a Lamborghini, I tend to think that Lamborghini owners are a little bit more willing to accept the story than a Ferrari owner. Ferrari owner wants everything to be done at the dealer, wants everything to be done to the dealer specifications. Lamborghini owners, I think they like a good story. I think they want, oh, well, that stain's there. Well, I'll tell you later. With these cars, they're just also so increasingly rare that sometimes people will take a story because there's no other cars available. If your car is just that good and you can prove to them that it's that good, then you can actually make a sale. I've had somebody offer me 130 grand for my Gallardo, but I'm not going to take it because, well, I've never had a car this nice, and I've literally spent my entire 2018 trying to rebuild this, and it was a labor of love. It was a lot of effort, and it took a lot of money. So throughout this entire process, you kind of realize what sort of type of car you're into. And you also learn what kind of project you're willing to bear. And it's not that, my hands are magic or I can just fix these cars because I have some innate ability to do so. It's just because I'm willing to take on a project and I'm sort of broken in all the right ways that allow me to do these sorts of things. And I'm also willing to take on the risks because, let's face it, if something is really broken on this car, then it could be ruinously expensive. But, you know, knock on wood, it hasn't happened yet. Now, when I look for cars, and when I say perfect, it just means that when I have a YouTube channel and I can show people what the process is, then that's perfect for me. It allows me to share this sort of brokenness with the world, and people get a kick out of it. So my Gallardo is perfect, the Bentley's perfect, the F355 that has been in a huge fire is perfect, and this Murcielago will be perfect as well. And by perfect, I mean really, really broken.
Last year, Sonny and I tried out Avalon King's Armor Shield 9 ceramic coating on my Porsche 993, and it came out great, and since then it's been much easier to keep clean. You can see the story about that here, but more importantly, this month we're going to try it out on my LP640. The car's finally done being repainted, and right now AP3 is putting a clear bra on the whole car, and on top of that, we're going to put the ceramic coating to make it look better and easier to clean. So if you'd like to try that out on your car, you can click the link in the description below.